Hello,
Live
everybody.
right now.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Hey, did you see this one? I am your host this week, Steven. Joining me are Kaylin and Jason on Instagram and Twitch. So if you're watching on Instagram, keep in mind we do have a Twitch handle. You can go to twitch.tv/hey, did you see this one? Just the name of the show with the TV before it. We're continuing our theme of the month, which is movies that are based on Stephen King novels, so adaptations of his books or short stories or whatever stuff that he wrote that got turned into movies. I believe the movie we're discussing this week is actually our first short story that we've been that we're going to be reviewing.
It's also by far the spookiest one we've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, the other two kind of feel, I mean, Dreamcatcher is spooky to a point and then it completely flips its theme, but this one legitimately spooky the whole time, I'd say. Yeah. And for those of you just joining us, we are doing the movie 1408, starring John Cusack and Samuel Jackson. Sam Jackson, not in it as much as you'd hope, but he's in it the perfect amount, I would say, and he is amazing in it.
He
never fails.
This is like a John Cusack, like one-man show.
Yeah, and it's very good too. He does an excellent job of
Exactly.
conveying what you need to be conveyed as an actor, but also the audience. You're not really confused to what he's feeling. It's pretty there on the surface, but it's in a good way.
He's a good everyman, also.
Sure, yeah. So welcome back to everybody who's joining us from previous episodes, and I guess we'll just jump right on into it. I think I'll start this time with the first time I'd seen this movie, which was in 2007 when it came out. I saw it in theaters, and for some people who are familiar, you'll know that this movie does have two sort of definitive endings with a couple of other ones thrown in throughout the years, but the theatrical ending versus the director's cut are significantly different. The bulk of the movie pretty much maintained from beginning to end for both versions, but those endings are pretty different. So when I saw the theatrical version, obviously. And when I watched it the other day, I was like, I don't remember this happening at the end. And I had to look it up, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's two versions. And I had watched the Blu-ray version, which it's now actually pretty hard to find the theatrical version. You have to find it on like a 2-disc DVD set paired with like The Mist or something.
Which one's the theatrical one again? The funeral scene, or
no? That's the funeral scene is the Blu-ray. That's the director's cut.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't really too informed on what I was going into. All I knew that it was based on a Stephen King novel or short story, and not much else. But the track record for the early to mid to late 2000s for Stephen King movies was kind of all over the map. Some good, some great, some terrible. So I kind of was like, whatever, this will be fine, I suppose. And I remember loving this movie. So I was very I was hesitant to revisit it again because I haven't seen it since theaters. And I gotta say, I wasn't disappointed. I am quite happy that it held up. And because it had been so long, had forgotten a lot of stuff, but I surprisingly maintained quite a bit of it. A lot of visual things, some of the jump scares, and more importantly, just like the tone and feel. I'm like, I remember feeling this way when I watched it the first time, and I felt the same way, which is a sense of intrigue, excitement, and also like complete and utter discomfort throughout the entire time. And you're happy for John Cusack's performance, which is him just sort of like, because he's a writer, he has a tape recorder, and he's like recording all of his thoughts rather than just having thoughts. He's like articulating them out loud, which is kind of a fun way to have a narrator without it actually being a narrator. But yeah, the first time I saw it was in theaters, where the ending was completely different, which is John Cusack survives and he gets pulled out of the burning building. And this version that I think all watched for this viewing was where he doesn't survive and he's in a coffin at the end. But yeah, let's move on to Jason.
Spoilers. Yes, and I didn't think it was going to have the ending that it had, which is interesting. And also, it did the thing that movie that I always think is going to happen in movies where somebody like you can theorize that they died at a certain point of the movie. We'll get to that in the base of the when we talk about the movie itself, but it did do a nice take on that trope. I did a thing for this. I have all the tropes, the TV tropes page for this movie pulled up because this movie has a lot of tropes in it. And I'm a trope lover. And if you don't know what a trope is, it's basically just like a recurring thing that happens. For instance, in movies, when you go into a sewer and the sewer's gigantic, where in real life, a sewer is like you would barely fit in a sewer. It's like a drain. But in the movies, it's like a whole, like the whole Ninja Turtles can live down there. So anyway, to get to my introduction to this movie, basically, I remember when this movie came out, but in 2007, that's like a pre-Walking Dead universe, or right around when it started. Or when did Walking Dead start? 2008, 2009?
2010.
It might have been 2010, I think. Yeah.
I was still a mega wuss for anything horror, anything.
I always forget that you say this. You say this almost every episode where we're dealing with a spooky movie, and like I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. And it's so weird to me because I know you very well, and even me knowing you very well, I wouldn't think that in my head. You seem like the guy who'd be like, I loved the Toxic Avenger when I was a kid.
Well, I don't know what happened. Like I've told this, like there's going to be a lot of new listeners, so I'll probably reiterate a lot of the things about me with movies. But when it comes to, I watched RoboCop when I was like 7, and it fucking messed me up, like real bad.
It's so bad.
I mean, there are some gruesome visuals in that movie. So.
It's true. It's true. Like the swamp thing, the swamp Avenger in that, or you know what, the Toxic Avenger in that movie near the end, where there's like just like a swamp dude. Now the special effects are laughable, but back then
I wouldn't say that they're laughable. I would say that they're comical because they're presented purposefully as comical, but they're still nasty. They're still gross. When that guy's getting blown apart, it's like we're gonna use every squib in Hollywood. Get us more squibs.
There was that too. I also watched a lot of In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries, and all of those things just sort of combined to like later in life make me kind of fear the unknown when it comes to movies. And also one time I accidentally, like I fell asleep on the couch and like woke up at like really early in the morning. I was probably like 7 or 8, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space was on. It was the part with like the pods and all the fuck. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, what it caused to have happen is all through my adolescence and teens and early 20s, I would get this like fear of what I didn't know was going to happen. And if I had been presented with this film when it came out, I feel like even then I would be like, I can't handle this. I remember watching Final Destination, Urban Legend Director's Cut with some friends after school, and it was so friggin' gory, and it like re-traumatized me in high school. So like it prolonged that even further. So, but I do remember when this movie came out, I remember thinking it looked really freaky, but I do love John Cusack, like High Fidelity is a great movie. That one where he's like an assassin is a good movie.
Hell was good. Another Stephen King with Samuel.
And I want to say right out of the gate, you could have put Nick Cage from 2007 in this movie in the same role, and the movie would barely change.
I can maybe make an argument that Nick Cage, his energy might it might ruin some of the more intense moments with the Nick Cage-isms that he tends to lean into. That's like that true. The part where he's like attacking the mini fridge, that would have been a crazy Nick Cage thing. But because it's John Cusack, it's a little bit more like you're like, oh man, this guy's losing his mind. Whereas like Nick Cage loses his mind so often in anything. You're like, oh, there's Nick Cage attacking a mini fridge.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking through this movie. Nick Caging would work, and also maybe ham it up and cheese it up a bit, but the parts that were meant to be played serious were so good because John Cusack is a legitimate actor. Like he usually does like romantic comedies or things on the more comedic side, but he played this so serious, and you really felt a lot of it in a weird way. It was like a horror movie, but like all of the ghost haunting the room was like a psychological monster.
Well, yeah, there's even a line in the movie where Sam Jackson is like, it's not a ghost. It's the room itself is evil. It is an evil room. Yeah.
The seven rings of hell, probably,
Yeah.
or something. There's a
Nine.
lot we can
There's
get
9
in,
of them.
or 9, yeah. It's Dante's whole ass inferno. We can probably get into that in the bulk of the show, but I'll leave it there. Let's turn it over to old Cage Man.
Hello. I was not born in a cage, but
you do deserve to be put in one.
Look at you. Get in your cage.
Get in there. Get back in there. Quick question to you, Steve. Did you go with a group of friends or a significant other when you saw it in theaters?
This would have been probably a group of friends, yeah, or maybe just one friend. I don't know. I didn't really have any significant others for a little while in my life.
I don't think I can handle this movie in theaters now. Honestly, I theaters are a whole other thing. I've never seen a horror movie in theaters. I've never seen anything more than a superhero or a comedy in theaters. I saw
Evil
Dead 3. Army of Darkness. I saw that in theaters, but that's like a horror comedy.
Yeah, that's like a PG-13, like a piece fighting skeletons, and it's goofy, but
yeah.
Yeah, I think I've already mentioned this a couple times as well throughout the series. I was terrified of everything as a kid. Like I was legitimately scared of everything. And then one day something just clicked in my head where I was like, okay, it's okay to be scared of everything. Maybe you like being scared of everything. And then I just started embracing all of it. And I was like, give me every horror movie and I get to judge which one is the scariest. And I do have like sort of a list in my mind of the scariest horror movies. This is definitely not on that list, but I did enjoy it. And I got significantly creeped out when I watched it. Especially when you go in without knowing what's going to happen, right? Like you have no idea what's going to happen next in this movie. And because it's so breakneck, like every freaking 30 seconds, something is happening for points. And it's unnerving. And you feel his mental sort of like decay as he's kind of realizing what's happening. He's like, oh my God. But anyway, Kaylin, it's your moment right
now. Well, so on that note, at my core, I'm not like a horror movie kind of person. Like it's not my go-to or whatever. It's not like a matter of being scared or anything because I know it's a movie. I know it's, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, we get it. You're a tough guy. Jesus Christ.
This put the knife down, with the big muscle, always watching the spookiest horror movies.
I've been hit by a car. If that can't stop me.
Well, then you'd be terrified of Christine.
I thought, is that the one with the car?
Yes.
But the Maximum Overdrive.
Is that also with a car, right?
Yeah, and Emilio Estevez.
Is it a B-string version of Christine?
No, they're both Stephen King stories.
He wrote both of them. Actually, I believe that Stephen King directed that movie.
Yeah, that's the thing about Maximum Overdrive. He wrote and directed it from a short story.
Is he a good director?
I've never actually seen it, so maybe we should do that as like a follow-up at some point.
Yeah.
Throw it on the list.
Do a month of Cars movies.
That's
it's all the Cars movies, Cars 1, 2, and 3.
I'm down with interesting
Maximum Overdrive.
Planes.
Abstract theme months. I'm down with that.
All right, so tell us about the first time you saw this flick.
I'm trying.
You keep proposing questions to us during your segment.
Welcome to Hey, Did You See This One, where it takes us 25 minutes to introduce when we saw the movie for the first time.
So horror movies aren't my go-to, and is what I was trying to get to. And it also isn't typically some that me and a group of friends would go see either. It would be kind of like what Jason said, like, either a superhero movie or a comedy. Horror movies are definitely some that I would typically do with a significant other. I don't have very many of those though. And so my first time seeing this movie, I think actually at the early onset of COVID, I started doing like I made a list of some movies of like, either like, ones that you got to see or ones that, I've heard a lot about that I hadn't seen yet. I didn't really remember it though. So I almost want to just say that this was my first time watching it.
Mhm.
and I was captivated the whole time for sure. The one word that comes to mind, like when watching this compared to the other two, was concise. It felt, especially for the last one, where there was kind of different genres going on. This one felt more concise, and like in regards to tone and execution, I guess, and the like any kind of like there were some humorous moments, but it felt right as opposed to butt monsters, which I thought was supposed to be a joke, and maybe I'm just a weird person.
I had no idea what you meant. But yeah, Dreamcatcher. The
Dreamcatcher last week, and they're not. But like when you were saying butt monsters in our chat, I was like, "There's butt monsters," and I mentioned this. It's like, does this Dreamcatcher catch these monsters from your neck? Not the butt monster he's referring to is that their gestation period happens in your chest and down your stomach, and they go out your butt. So maybe that's just with humans. Who knows? They don't really explain anything. And
yeah, because it's like different. There's different, almost like with aliens too, how they have different creatures or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna say that this was my first time watching it, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't own it. I wish I did. It'll probably
pretty
get
hard
added.
to find, actually.
I heard Dogma's pretty hard to find, or at least it's expensive.
It's because no company owns Dogma right now, so they can't re-release it. So there's literally it's impossible to get.
I will say, if you're watching this in the future on some sort of on-demand situation, 1408 is literally on YouTube and several copies of it. So if
this movie?
Yeah, I put it in the chat last night when we were doing the trailer show. So if you're
the whole
curious,
movie is on YouTube.
The whole movie, and multiple times as well. Not just like one person has it. I searched it looking for the trailer, and then like 5 of it came up. So you might even find the different versions with the different endings as well. And I'm going to be checking YouTube. I also got a library card. So if I can't find a movie to stream, I'm going to literally go to the library.
That's a good idea.
They have movies.
They have shit tons of old movies. Yeah, like weird movies you wouldn't even expect.
And Steven, I give it back to you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, we just got another viewer because of Kalen's rant there. So that's good. What's up?
No, it's because you mentioned library cards, and the word spread real quick.
Yeah, nothing makes people want to tune into a video game based streaming platform like talking about libraries.
You can rent video games at a library. Did you know that?
But only some places.
Game Boy games? They have Game Boy games or something? What do they got?
I don't know. I don't have a fucking Game Boy.
No,
what am I, a 9-year-old from 1995? Kaylin, get a freaking job.
Out in Mississauga, here in Ontario, they have them, but here in the city they don't, because if they did, you could just go to the library and scoop up like 5 PS4 games. They'd be gone forever.
No, you can like Cam used to rent games from the library all the time before he got Game Pass. He would just like go to the library and anyway.
I'll have to investigate this because I want to rent games from the library.
I could hear you better when you were closer to your mic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it bad?
No, it's just a little bit quieter than usual.
How's this sound? Is this better?
Yeah.
That's good, yeah. Okay. So I guess I'll run through the plot summary quickly here. Mike, played by John Cusack, is a cynical writer who writes he's estranged from his wife after the death of their child, which isn't really revealed until later in the story, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that because at first you're like, why is this guy such a sort of gloomy prick?
Yeah,
where he's like, he's not an asshole to anybody specifically, he's just sort of like a downer in general, but
can I interject one thing, and I promise I won't do it 100 times. I just wanted to say that since we've talked about this, Stephen King loving to do self-inserts, this is almost autobiographical to the point that I feel like he had the conversation that he has with Samuel L. Jackson when he first gets when he first gets to the hotel. I feel like is almost verbatim a back and forth he's had with a producer or a publisher or an agent. Obviously not about him going to a hotel to ghost bust, but I feel like something adjacent has happened to him that caused him to write this story.
I feel like we should talk way in depth about that specific conversation because it is literally the best part of the entire movie.
When he's trying to get him to give him the room.
I think we could have an entire episode on just that conversation. Like, it is such a good conversation. Actually, the short story is literally the majority of the short story is that conversation, and then the rest of it is like a little bit of him in the room.
I meant to check it up. I meant to look it up, but how does the short story end? Or we can talk about it later. But do you know?
Yeah, let's go through the plots.
I'm done talking.
Okay, so anyway, he writes like crappy 10 most books, like 10 most haunted lighthouses, 10 most haunted motels, and he's currently working on one for hotels, I believe. And he has like a book signing, and you can tell the people that go to these they're obsessed with haunted stuff, and he's never seen a ghost. So he's like, I don't know, ghosts aren't real, God isn't real, fuck you. But then some woman comes up and presents him with a copy of one of his early works, which is a legitimate book, like a legitimate fiction, that is clearly referential to his life growing up with his father. And the reason that keeps being brought up via secondary and tertiary characters being like mentioning the character of the father in this book that he wrote when he was a younger man. But he seems to be dismissive and not want to talk about it, which again kind of solidifies his fall from like maybe not grace, but like for sure faith, and for sure like his is showing you this estrangement from his father before you've even met the father character. But anyway, he gets into like a surfing accident where he's distracted by I don't know, like a banner being dragged by a plane. And he gets hit by a wave and he almost drowns. And then he, cuts to him in a restaurant where he's opening his mail. And one of the letters that he gets in the mail is from the Dolphin Hotel, with the simple word saying, do not enter 1408, or like don't enter 14, something like that. Yeah. And, he quickly does the math, adding up 4108, realizing it equals 13. And he's like, all right, yeah, sure. The 13th floor, because most buildings don't have a 13th floor, and it's the 13th room on that level. Very good.
I don't like that. They should make a 13th floor and literally skip it.
Sometimes they do that.
Or they should just make a 13th floor and have rooms on it. Like,
make all the rooms 13.
No, but this is an antiquated thing from like the times when religion was taught in school, where superstitions were like fact.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think any modern buildings skip over the 13 anymore. Well,
sometimes they would do the 13. They would put a 13 button that just you couldn't press, and it would just to create the mystique, continue the mystique. Yeah. Sorry, can you go back? I did make a note about this. What 1408 adds up? Okay, so
1 plus 4 plus 0 plus 8 equals 13.
13. Yeah. Okay, cool. Because
I actually had to do a double take when I was watching. Like, wait a second, that doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. I'm dumb.
I didn't do the math. I was trying to figure out the math, and I didn't think about it very hard. Clearly, and I'm bad at math.
I'm bad at math, but I'm pretty sure I did the math when I first saw the movie, and I probably did the same thing, being like, "What do you mean 13? It says 1408 right there."
As soon as they get in the elevator, I'm like, "Oh yeah, they don't have 13th floors on a lot of hotels from antiquity."
Yeah. So he tries to get a room at the hotel, but a mysterious person on the other line is just telling him the room's not available, and he's like, "I didn't tell you what date I want to rent it for." And they're like, "It's not available." And he's like, "What about next week? What about next month? What about next year?" And the guy just hangs up on him. And so in order to get this room at the Dolphin, he goes through his publisher, who then uses their lawyers to figure out a way to dredge up some sort of like bylaw or whatever, saying if a room is unoccupied in a hotel, they have to rent it to you, or you can sue them and we'll take legal action. Nice. So that's the way of him elbowing his way into getting a booking for that room. And when he arrives, it's a typical sort of like Stephen King setting where everything in the lobby is weird. Also, did you guys notice that like as soon as gets that letter, everything sort of the camera angle gets a little bit more jilted, and they start doing cuts to like ceiling fans, and everything just gets slightly more creepy after that. Like everything's sort of normal up until that point, but even the music gets a little bit more creepy, and
like
it
horror
doesn't let go, and it just gets crazier and crazier after that moment.
the musical horror stings start the first time he's up, he gets to the floor and he's looking through the dossier of just like murdered people.
Yeah.
He walks like he walks around like the whole upstairs and just like forgets where he was going, and as he's going from room to room he hears like just weird shit happening in each room. So it leads me to believe that this floor has something to do with the bigger Stephen King Dark Tower universe. And there could be
That would be cool. Each room leads to like a different dimension.
Like different hell dimension or different spooky dimension that they never really went into. The woman, did you talk, sorry I was zoning out for a second looking at my notes, but did you talk about the woman in white?
No, I haven't gotten past him entering the hotel yet.
Okay, sorry. Because they did a shot in that lobby too where he's talking to Sam Jackson before they go to his office. And there's a shot they loved to do in the early 2000s, which was just like they did it on Lost all the time, where there's two people talking and the camera's just going around in circles. And I was like, they're going to do some variation of this later. This movie telegraphs a lot of things and foreshadows a lot of things.
Foreshadowing, yeah.
The normal part of the movie, it foreshadows a lot of shit that happens later in the movie.
Mm-hmm. But I was going to say, like, this lobby is full with just odd characters. You know, there's like a woman who's dressed out of time, like she's an old woman who looks like she's dressed from like she's going to go to the park in the 20s. Nice. And she has like a very sheared and groomed poodle, and like, you know, everything is just sort of like, ugh, this place is freaking weird, man. But he gets to the desk and tries to check in, and the clerk immediately is like, I gotta give me a second, hold on. And like, it's on the screen, it's like alert manager. And you know, within seconds Sam Jackson is there trying to upgrade him to like a different room. He's like, we'll give you our presidential suite free of charge, and he's not interested. And like you said, Jason, Sam Jackson then asks to speak he says, if you'll humor me for a minute, if we could take this into my office and have a more private conversation. And this is where the movie gets super duper intriguing. Like, you're already sort of in, like, you're in with like, anytime somebody gets a mysterious letter, you're like, I'm in. A mysterious letter. Who sent that letter? Did the room send the letter?
Even if we hadn't watched the trailer last night and it kind of gave me an idea what the movie's about, when he took a spill in that water, I was like, they're going to use this somehow. But I was also like, is this how are they gonna do this? Is it gonna be that cheesy? But I think the little twist involving
it's a little psych. Although I think the room did send it, and I will talk about that later when we get to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons and tons of theories on this movie. I tried to stay away from them because I didn't want it to inform my opinion of our discussion too much. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of very obvious ones that I was like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'll watch this afterwards. I want to see this guy's 40-minute analysis of the movie 1408. Anyway, he has an amazing conversation with Sam Jackson. It's one of the best one-on-one conversations that is so long, but at the same time, you kind of wish that it kept going. You're like, this is a really long scene, but I would be down to just continue watching this scene forever.
They had really good on-screen chemistry, I thought.
Try to touche each other.
They're similar actors too, you know, like they're really good at like doing like a monologue.
Yeah, and the dialogue is super chunky and stilted, but it feels really good. It's like you're watching like a stage play almost, where like you could see yourself sitting there watching the two of them kind of circling around each other in the office, just being like, and now I'm going to say my thing. Well, I'm going to say my thing now. And it gets like it's super separated at first, and it just gets more and more intimate. Mm-hmm. They start getting closer and closer to each other.
This movie also has a lot of like regular dialogue that you would hear us say to each other, but then like author like writing dialogue, like one-liners,
right?
That sound like the writer
like at the same time, like these movies, these aren't like pulled from the pages of Stephen King. You know, they're written into screenplays, right? But like, I'm sure that the lifeblood of the conversation is there. But I think if you were to compare them side by side, it would be a lot more heady, and it would be a lot more in the guy's head, the character thinking about what the other person's saying, right?
I've just loved these Stephen King movies where it's very literary. Like a lot of the conversations can get literary, and it's unlike the John Carpenter movies that are very much like pop, like all the dialogue is very much like popcorn B movie. with
Yeah.
similar themes and tones, like similar weird twists and weird pseudo horror. But you can feel when you're watching Stephen King content in Stephen King movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's in the book, the curator, the hotel, or not curator, the hotel manager is curator is like a hotel person or whatever. The hotel manager is like a short, bald, like fat white guy. It's just like, well, I'm sorry, that room's not available, whatever. And it's like, you think about if that role was cast to look like that versus like Sam Jackson. I think I would be far more intimidated by Sam Jackson leaning in and speaking calmly and coolly than this like sort of sweaty, like non-intimidating man. And I think the line where he's like, "I beg of you, please don't go in the room," or he's like as opposed to Sam Jackson saying it's an evil fucking room. It's like, oh my god, those are that's way more intense, and I think it works way better. But like, I really, really like the scene a lot, and like the amount of exposition in it is great. The back and forth between them is amazing, and it also sets up what is scary about this room perfectly. And you also have that sort of, am I to believe this? Am I not? But the more and more information that's revealed by Sam Jackson, the more you as an audience member is just like holy fuck.
I thought Sam Jackson,
be crazy.
Based on this conversation and the way the movie goes, I thought that he was the devil or Lucifer or one of those like gatekeeper devils until that last scene. But I guess it depends on what ending you get.
Oh, touche.
Yeah, in the theatrical, you don't really see him again after the fire. Yeah. But
theatrical one is where it's them in their apartment or something, right?
Yeah, and then there's like another alt version where I think the book
the publisher
yeah, he gets the box instead, and it has the manuscript for the book in it.
Very Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, so it's like the book survives and the room gets destroyed, but he also gets destroyed. But yeah, there's a couple of different endings, but there's the two sort of like, do you like this one or this one amongst 108 fans, 1408 fans, which I can't really think of too many that I know who are like, you haven't seen 1408? I'm a big 1408 fan, man.
1408.
Yeah.
Do you know what I thought this movie was going to be when you first brought it up? I thought it was going to be a period piece about like witches. until we watched the trailer, and then I was like, oh yeah, I remember this movie. It's about a fucking haunted hotel room.
It's about an evil fucking room. Yeah, but like what you just said about him being the gatekeeper, you kind of feel like that at first because he has this sort of air of like regality, and he also is intimidating, but he's also super informed of the room's history.
Yeah, exactly.
But
confidence.
The fact that he is trying his hardest to stop John Cusack from going in that room, like he does almost everything he possibly can, short of like handcuffing him to his desk or whatever, right?
And selfishly too, he's not doing it to look out for him. He doesn't want to deal with the mess.
Yeah, true.
Which is also a good line, but I think the one that like you can even see it in like Cusack's face is when he tells him like, so I see you've done your research, and I assume you also in your research found the like 40 natural deaths that occurred, or the 26 natural deaths, and he's like, natural death? And that was one thing that really stuck out from the first watch that I had, was him describing the person drowning in the chicken soup. Like I remember that sitting in the theater being like, oh my god, this room is going to be so scary. It's the scariest fucking room I ever saw.
I'll tell you that during this conversation. Sorry? I was just saying, all I was going to say is during this conversation, I was getting that fear of the unknown feeling I used to get from horror movies. And then I had to like kind of snap out of it and be like, it's just a movie. It's nothing that they can really do except for jump scares that's going to make me like feel away.
Yeah,
and it's true. And the jump scares didn't even really get me because I always over prepare. Sorry, Kayla, go ahead.
Right quick on the numbers. The booze that Samuel L. Jackson offered,
$800 cognac.
yeah. The name of it translates to I think it's 57 deaths or something like that.
Oh, cool.
And so the room had 56 already, right? Huh?
Interesting. Now I do think that he's the devil again. Yeah, no, it's like he does have that, like I said, he has an air of sort of like arrogance, but also he is doing things selfishly. He's giving him all the information to stop him from doing it, but he also seems to be having this almost like it's like he's taking pleasure in presenting the information to him, being like, did you know about this though? Check out this shit. This guy's trying to sew his own neck back together. That's fucked up, right?
He slit his own neck, and then in a fit of fear, he tried to sew himself back together. And the guy that made himself a eunuch too. Ugh.
That's when you cut your penis off?
No, it's when you cut out one of your balls.
Oh. Okay.
But
well,
I think
it might be both balls.
It's usually both, but at the same time, they still will say, like, in certain tradition, it'll just be the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, if you will. They basically just get rid of all of it. The eunuch is the aftermath. You are castrated. That is what you're referred to after you are castrated. Yeah.
I was thinking of that character in Game of Thrones.
Which one? There's like a fucking 1,000.
Oh yeah, there's the whole army of eunuchs. No, the bald dude. I can't remember his name now.
The spider. Yeah, Viserys. So anyway, I have so much I could talk about with this conversation, but unless you guys have anything else to say about it.
My bad for interrupting. You keep doing your.
Sorry. Let's get through the synopsis, and then we can just talk.
I mean, like after this point, it's just kind of like balls to the wall, like stuff is happening in the room, right? Like you follow them up in the elevator. Sam Jackson refuses to get off the elevator. He's like, I only go up to the room once a month where I take a full staff with me, and no one's allowed to be in any room but by themselves. The door stays open.
That kind of sounded like a period joke.
Oh, at the end it was. Yeah, he says unless it's that time of the month. Yeah, once a month he goes to. That was 100% a period joke. I mean, it sounds like one. It's like they released the movie and someone writes a review being like, and was that a period joke? And the producers are like, how'd we let that get through? We got a fucking period joke in our movie.
Oh no, take it down. Even though it's fucking produced by Harvey Weinstein.
Oh god.
Right in the credits in huge letters too. It's like it can't even be like,
it was 2007. They didn't know.
That's true. Yet. That's true. I'm sure people knew.
Well, I mean, what I meant to say was the world didn't know.
Right.
Hey, for a minute, people didn't know what skeet skeet was, and they were saying that shit on the radio.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing.
That's completely different. That's just words. That's just a thing from a song that a man who did Superman that hoe made up.
Superman that hoe made it up. So they go up the elevators. John Cusack, as you already iterated before, Jason, or illustrated, that he gets kind of distracted by the folder because it is very gruesome and gory stuff.
It's so gross.
But awesome. There's all this stuff going on around him. An elevator opens on its own. It's all just kind of weird, right? Like nothing is spooky yet. And he sees the woman with the baby again, who he saw in the lobby. But at this point, you still don't really know anything about him and his wife, except for a very one-off line by his producer saying, like, "You're gonna call Lily after all what happened?" And you're like, "What happened?" And then he sees the woman again, and you later understand that he and his wife lost their daughter, and it caused them to be separated, and it is a big thing. So
it's unclear throughout this movie how the daughter, if the daughter was crimed against by someone, or if
I think it was cancer.
Yeah. No, man, because I thought that at one point he goes, "Who would do that to another person?"
No, he said, "What kind of God would do this to a child?"
Yeah, what God? Yeah,
I flipped my whole computer because I was like,
damn it, Jason! That's why you got to watch more than once,
or just pay attention to the movie.
I was paying attention. I was like, wait a second, this kid
she's like clearly dying of like leukemia. Someone came in and just shot her in the head.
No, that's not. I don't want to get into where my mind went.
Ooh, I kind of want to go there.
Dark as fuck, and I was like, why wouldn't they talk about that element of it more? Well, yeah, clearly it makes. I was like, obviously it's cancer or something, but
I don't think they really go into what
also
she died of.
But
yeah, she died, and that's also the reason in my mind why he lost every bit of faith in God is because he blamed God for the.
And Mikael was just half saying there, like,
He quit
he
smoking.
probably quit smoking because of it.
Although I think that ties in with what was actually going on in the book, because I think in the book there was some different aspects to some other anyway, we're watching the movie. I think his brother.
You're gonna derail,
actually,
then you don't even have a thing to add. Come on now.
well, okay, so who the fuck is David?
Who the fuck is David? Oh,
So at the
he's
beginning,
someone that gave him a letter for his birthday.
yeah, but like they show us that like he like they show the name like
Okay, it was the angel David that sent him a letter to be like, good luck in your battle against the devil. Well, that's what you're asking me to do by proposing that question. So there you go.
But
that's
they
the answer.
focus on it. Then they don't. It was like a misdirect or something. I don't know.
Is David not his fucking producer?
No, I think it's
publisher.
Tony Shalhoub.
No,
Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub. I was in the shower after I went for my walk, and I was thinking about Muppetizing this movie, and I was like, okay, so obviously John Cusack is Kermit, and obviously
his name's not David. Yeah, okay, so who knows?
Basically the owl is Sam Jackson, and I was like, Tony Shalhoub is the human.
The owl or eagle?
What owl are you talking about?
The eagle. Sorry, the eagle.
Okay.
Tony Shalhoub is the human. You know, there's always a human in Muppets movies.
Yeah, the weird human. Yeah, he's just there.
He also looks enough
he's
like a
himself.
Muppet.
Yeah, he's just like
Tony
a Jason
Shalhoub.
Segel or whatever.
It's like
He's actually him, Tony Shalhoub.
It's just a Muppet of Tony Shalhoub.
Or he's the only Muppet and everyone else is a human.
Sorry, that was just my fun shower thoughts that I wanted to add to this podcast.
Anyway, I don't know who David is, Kaylin. I don't know, but if you want to connect it to the biblical themes of the movie, of which there are lots, you could take that into that direction. But like, I don't know. They don't go into it other than that.
I'm satisfied with I don't know. That's an honest answer. I like that. I'm down with that.
Okay. Well, then there you go. That's my answer. It's no fucking buddy. It's some guy named David. It's not even his birthday. It's the wrong. He opened the envelope.
It's not even his
mail. Is it? Yeah, just opening the wrong mail.
Also, I think that if we did a bit of research, we would have found that the room wasn't a random series of chaos. I think that each one of those things that happens is related to a
trauma they're going
9 layers of hell, or like
for sure it is. Yeah, if you guys are familiar with
the stages
with
of
Inferno, like Dante's Inferno, he goes through literal like descriptions of layers of hell within that poem, and like the end of the movie is kind of him reaching purgatory and having to climb back up it. So like it is definitely an allegory for Dante's Inferno. I'm sure there is like a very in-depth analysis of it, but I didn't want to watch it and then bite all their points within our discussion, because you could just go watch that video, right?
The elements were the ones that I wanted to bring up. How there's a very distinct heat part at the beginning that kind of drives him nuts. There's a really low point in his adventure where he's like frozen.
Okay, well, at that point, he literally says we're in the 9th circle of hell, which is the lowest circle of hell, which is treachery, I believe, which is where the devil himself is frozen. And that is where you go once you reach the bottom of hell. After you've been tortured every other layer, you result there, you end there. And that's like the lowest you get in hell. And that is the point where he starts to try and climb back out, right?
Well, and the reason why I bring it up is because when he gets to the water part, all of the paintings, which were a thing from earlier, it's kind of like he's up on the upswing, because now the paintings are all turning into horrific pictures. The water comes out of the painting of the ship, creating the water level of the situation. There's also 2 very specific parts where he goes outside on the ledge of the building trying to like go to another room, to be like, I need to go to another room and see what the fuck. And when he gets out to the ledge, it shows the whole building that kind of goes forever, and only the 2 windows of his room. And the other thing that it really reminded me of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is when he goes up into the
climbing to that reminded me of Bill and Ted as well.
He goes up into the rafters, up into the air duct, and it's super hot and gross, and he's been through all this shit, and he finds a corpse that comes to life and is chasing him around it, which is very much like the the part where they go to the techno hell in
yeah, and I mean,
Locust Journey, and
I can find
new
it
one.
very believable that Stephen King probably went in and read what those, like, interpreted those layers of hell in his own way and was like, how do I translate these into specific moments within the story? And I would even venture further to say that the director and the writer probably did the same thing, and they're like, how do we like make this not obvious that we're doing Dante's Inferno, but like let's try and, you know,
they threw in
cinemify it and make it more like coherent to like, how do we do this but within one hotel room?
They threw in the visage and the image and the hallucination of a like axe murderer kind of character who you never really get a good look at. You only see kind of in his peripheral vision or flashes or like comes like swinging and then disappears.
There's the part where all the paintings are going crazy, and then the ship turns around and you can see that he's on the boat with like the hammer.
Was it a guy or a girl?
It was a woman.
No, it's a guy.
What's her face?
I looked it up. I looked it up because I was also like, is that a lady?
Like a crazy like homeless lady.
It's actually the person that played that character is John Cusack's stunt coordinator for the movie, playing that.
I thought it was Benny the Jet.
I don't understand.
I guess my research is wrong. It looks like what's that girl's name? Is it Sharon Stone or no? Who's the really hot chick? Charlize Theron. Who's the one that shaved their eyebrows off?
From Monster?
Yeah,
that's Charlize Theron.
Yeah, it reminded me of her.
They're making a show of that as well, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you making a joke that was Charlize Theron? Like, it's Charlize Theron.
Who's Benny the
Yeah,
Jet?
I didn't understand your Benny in the Jet joke.
No, I was reading some, like I did a little bit of just Google research or whatever, and it said something about some of the claw or whatever, which I assumed was that person.
Right, yeah. Because they have a claw hammer, yeah, which is a horrible way to get killed. A hammer? Ugh.
Yeah.
I'd rather get stabbed to death, I think.
And ultimately what the room desires is it will torture you with these horrible images of like things in your life or your past, or just torture you relentlessly until you
it wants you to check out
until you unalive yourself. Expedient checkout, I think it was called.
It kind of made me think like, oh, I think the room has all of these abilities to torture you, but it does not have the ability to kill you. It's like it'll keep you there and can keep you there, but it can't kill you. It'll just keep you.
That's foreshadowed a bit when John Cusack is like, dreams, you don't die in your dreams. A true shock will wake you up. So he's like, I'm gonna go out on this ledge, and it doesn't allow him to die.
Yeah,
he has a close call, which is very scary, and that's one of my fears, like being on a ledge.
I gotta jump from that one. When he tries to get back in the window and then the claw person's there, I did get a little jump from that one.
No, it's the lady. It's the jumper lady. You know, the ghosts lady?
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, that's what it was.
Which was more disturbing because whenever those ghosts are looking at them, they always look at him with like this like look of understanding, being like, you get why I'm doing this, right? And then they jump. And she's crying and weeping. But then when she swipes at him, I'm like, I thought you were friendly. I thought you were a friendly ghost.
I think she was swiping to open the curtain, and he mistook it as swiping at her or him.
Maybe, yeah.
I liked that they showed, how I interpret it is they showed different eras of those two ghosts. One was in full black and white, and one was in like Technicolor.
Yeah.
I took that as like it being from two eras of this hotel room.
Me too. I the way I interpret it was like the room has information, and it has information about everybody who's killed themselves in there before, and it has information about you as the person who's alive in there. But so few people have been in that room since Sam Jackson took over that it's like the only sort of reference that the hotel has is like what was on the television at the era of like that person dying. So it's like, this is what was on the TV when this guy died. So it like presents him as like a weird sort of like staticky ghost, and then the other person was in Technicolor, so they're like a weird ghost. So it's just kind of like using what you know as a person to mess with you even more, to be like, I'm not going to show you a traditional specter. I'm going to show you like a weird radio ghost that's like
We've only just begun.
Well, because did you notice that the guy in all black and white, like he had like radio static and television static, but he didn't make a noise whatsoever, as though he was from like a silent era. And then she's like fully weeping, and you can hear her voice and stuff, right?
Like, and it's like through a weird radio sound too. Like it's really distorted and weird, and all of that.
It's not HD.
All of that was really bizarre. I when Cusack's character, when when Mike shows up to the next person, when they rebuild that room, and Mike shows up to be the actual friendly ghost, he's going to be in like you know what it looks like when you watch an old. He's going to be in 480p, like when you watch an old DVD or a late VHS.
Right.
He'll be an early upscaled 720.
Or he'll be buffering sometimes, like he'll go blurry every once in a while, and then like reconstitute.
Can we talk about that for a minute? I know that most of this movie takes place in basically a glorified hallucination, to the point where there's actually a moment where he thinks that Sam Jackson hallucinated him as part of a prank to make him think
thought he drugged the cognac or the
chocolate. He was on acid. Yeah. The whole internet thing was weird, because in 2007, an old building like that did not have Wi-Fi. People barely had Wi-Fi, and the fact that he was like,
he had a booster.
I gotta connect to the internet, and he's like, dude, and it connects immediately. I was like, that took me out of it. I know it's dumb.
Okay, but here's what this is my interpretation.
And then the webcam looked this good. And this looks mediocre for 2020.
Once again,
it still looks amazing.
If you will let me respond, you can keep shitting on the computer, but I'm going to respond in the exact same way, which is the moment before he says it's an evil fucking room. Sam Jackson hands him an old key, and he says, "Old key. Most hotels have switched to magnetic key cards." Yeah. And then Sam Jackson says, "We do have magnetic key cards, but funny enough, 1408. Electronics just don't work in there." And then you go up to the room, or like, you know, certain types of electronics, and the room itself doesn't allow an electronic key card on the door. But if that's the case, then it also would not allow your laptop to work. So in that moment, the room is allowing that to happen, because the room wants that to happen, and it wants to give him that bit of hope, and then it wants to contact his wife to bring
that as.
Yeah. Let me be a little bit pedantic, though, just for the sake of conversation.
Be pedantic.
How did the room know that technology like that could exist if it didn't even exist in the world yet?
Because how does the room know how his daughter died? How does the room know who his wife is? How does the room know that his father is in a
fair enough.
Because it's on DMT and it's connected to everything.
It's a weirdly correct depiction, a weirdly correct guess at what the future of talking over computers is like. And I know you could do it in 2007, but it didn't look that good. It looked like his little ghost picture when he was like coming through, like in all staticky, like.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to think cinematically. If it was like, you haven't even seen his wife up to that point in the movie. If she was all pixelated, you yourself would be like, is this his wife?
Or is this accurate?
Who's this pixelated face?
Is this reality accurate talking over computers for 2007?
But also, I have more problems with that scene being like, if that is real and he is talking to his wife, she is not listening to what he's saying, and she's focusing completely on herself that entire time, and it really was frustrating to me, which is a really frustrating thing in all movies when somebody calls and they're like, listen, I need your help. And the other person's like, you haven't called me in a year. What the fuck? It's like, I need your help. I'm being murdered. And it's like, murdered? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that seems realistic to me.
You went over a pack of cigarettes.
Kaylin, if I called you and said I was being murdered, would you take another phone call?
I would be potentially hesitant at first. Yeah.
Wow.
Depending on certain variables and factors and whatnot, you know, especially so they had, you know, their split. From what I gathered, they didn't really kind of stay in contact that much.
Yeah, I think they hadn't spoken in a year.
And so it was recent enough that I buy that she would have some questions and wouldn't just immediately.
Because he does this. This is what he does. He stays in spooky places or whatever. Maybe he's trying to pull one over on me or something.
He's an alcoholic writer who's probably
alcoholic, right?
You know, he's probably probably has a history of being like, when my next book comes out, we're gonna get a landfall, we're gonna make the big bucks. We even get a moment of that when he's like in his he's come out of the nightmare and back into his life. Turns out it was all a dream. It's not. But
I like that. I like that psycho. I did like that.
he looks down and he sees an insurance bill. He's still paying for his daughter.
Also, $600
bills.
parking ticket.
Yeah, and this was like a $3,700 fucking medical insurance bill. And he looks at that and he's like, I got this book ready to go to give to Tony Shalhoub. And that was, see, I was looking through that whole point for the cracks. And one of the other cracks in it was when the guy goes, I really love your top 10 scariest hotels book. And he looks at him like,
I didn't make it yet.
I haven't published, I haven't finished the 10th one.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to the 10th one. And then I really enjoyed the the reveal of him going back, like he loses a postcard and then he goes back to the post office, and then the people from the hotel, like that work in the hotel, start smashing the walls down.
Rage room.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that was so well done. Also, I just wanted to point out before I forget, the first guy that he encounters when he gets to the desk is from Gotham.
Yeah. He's a New York actor. It's filmed in New York. Of course.
Yeah, of course. But he turns into
Butch.
Yeah, he plays
Gotham.
Butch. And in that canon, he gets turned into Salman Grundy. Yeah. Who's
Born on a Monday.
Who's a great C-list Batman villain, in my opinion. I've always liked Salman Grundy.
Oh, looks like it's us. It's on to us. It's up to us to bear the weight until Steve returns.
What's happening?
I think he's going to pee.
It's the weekly Kalen's Steve's gone bit. I've never gone for more than 10 seconds.
Oh, he went to get a beer. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, Butch is in it. He doesn't have much to do, but he does get to be one of the wall ripper guys.
And then I was like, oh yeah, Sam Jackson's in this movie literally 10 seconds later.
Oh man, Sam Jackson, if I feel like he's the only person that could kill the role as well as he did in this. Like he sells it, man. He sells the creep factor. And I love it.
I thought this movie had an air of X-Files. Kind of felt like he was Mulder and Scully at the same time. He like wants to believe, but he's never seen anything to back up his ghost theories.
Right.
It's all a ruse.
I mean, but there's also like a lot to sink your teeth into in terms of his character, right? Like he clearly has a shitty relationship with his dad. His dad doesn't like that he's a writer. He's only written one book, apparently, or like seemingly only one book that was personal to him. The rest are all just, dime store paperback bullshit.
Like when you go to a local town, like when you're in a small ass town and you go to the gift shop, and it's like, come see Peggy Cove's 13 ghosts of the area. And it's all just
or
bed
like
and breakfast.
Something you'd find at like a supermarket or something on one of those like spinning racks where it's just like full of random ass books, and then
Canada's
just like the like
most haunted
underpasses,
bed and breakfast,
heaving bosom,
fucking bed and breakfast. They nailed that trope so hard.
Yeah, I think that I can't remember where I read this or watched it. I did see somebody talking about it, but it was like they had planned on having that couple at the first bed and breakfast try and sell it up even further by like trying to spook him throughout the night, which I'm like, that could have been fun, but I think it would have maybe
padded out the movie like 15 extra minutes.
And it also would have like kind of almost made it lessen to his freak out in the hotel, because like he would have been used to people fucking with him, or it would have been established to us that people have tried to fuck with him before, which I like the fact that he's just like trying to find the person in the room, and it ends up getting injured, and he thinks he's being drugged, and like he's like slowly having this like existential moment of like, I can't be experienced. This isn't real. Like it is not real.
There's no, everything happens for a reason. There's no such thing as ghosts. And we don't get rattled. And I really enjoyed his like weird the early parts of his descent into madness literally could have just been explained away as this room is too hot. I'm not getting anything good. There's a
Any
Houdini,
jackass can fix that thing.
there's a Houdini in
Yeah.
this room, and it's not until that happens where the old man is like, I'm not going in there. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you've heard about what's happened in there. And you're like, this guy's an older gentleman. He's like a blue collar type. You could easily play it off as he's very superstitious, but that was the point where I was like, oh, this guy knows what's up if he's not going to go into the room.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, that's when things start snowballing.
I like when he says, is it too hot or too cold? And like John Cusack is like sweating and he's like, what?
And there was the most surreal weird part was where he's talking to the wall and it's like cracked and bleeding. I thought that was the most like psychotic, like, mental dissonance.
Yeah, that's another layer of hell actually. It's like I think it's something to do with deception, but I can't remember what it is. But it's like those who like passively deceive people and those who aggressively deceive people are in the same sort of like muck river, and like there's people fighting at the top of the river and there's those underneath. The passive ones are drowning. So like that's right kind of like before everything starts to flood, right? And then he drowns. So I'm like, oh, that's another layer. Aha, I've solved the Dante mystery of layer 5. I don't know Dante's Inferno that well. I did have to study it at one point in my life, but that information is just like lingering in my mind. I also played the video game, which is actually better than the poem.
Game. Yeah, it's
you get to murder stuff.
It's like a God of War kind of Dark Souls.
He's got
a
gun,
game, right?
And a jacket.
No, you're thinking of Devil May Cry.
That's Devil May Cry.
Yeah. Is his name Dante though?
Yeah. Well, one of them. There's a bunch of Devil May Cry main protagonists.
And in Dante's Inferno, the character's name is also Dante.
Yeah. And Dante from Devil May Cry's name is definitely based off that Dante because they're both warriors that go into hell and fight demons. Yeah. And I think might be both Capcom games actually. Now, Dante's Inferno, I remember being a big deal when it came out. I played it
because it was like the every console answer to God of War at the time.
Yeah, and it was graphically really good for the time.
And it was a good game. Like I played it and I liked it a lot. It is very nasty. Like it's gross, man. There's like at one point where you're fighting like a giant, I think it's Lust, and like she has enormous exposed breasts, and then she's trying to kill you and you're fighting her, and then she like spews out from her nipples all of the unbaptized babies of the world that are like coming at you or something. It's something crazy like that. And you're just like fighting fetuses.
I love it.
I'm back in 2 seconds. Keep going.
I love it. I kind of want to. It's a PS3 game, but if they bring that shit to,
I still have my PS3.
It's on Game Pass, dude. You can probably play it.
It is on Game Pass.
Yeah,
probably. But if they add it to that PSN Game Pass thing, hey, we're on Twitch. We're talking video games. Let's see if our view count went up. Talking about video games. Would you look at that?
5, baby. 5.
5,
Whoa.
baby. One's in chat.
I wonder if there's a way I can like spam my Xbox friends list. They probably all watch right now.
Two in chat if you've played video games.
Yeah, hit the toot button. That's how we toot us in chat.
If you're from the East Coast, you're a sea urchin, and if you're everywhere else in the world, you're a true seer.
So I didn't really want to get too deep into like the darkness of his character because it is very heavy shit, and it's like, kind of is depressing compared to the tone of the majority of the fun of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is there, and if you want to go into like a deep dive on the character of Mike, it's all there, and it's rich, and I think that's why a lot of people prefer the theatrical ending where he survives, because it is a nice journey, and he's victorious in the end, and it shows his growth, his maturity, his understanding of his downfalls, and then he overcomes them and he gets rewarded for that. Whereas the version where he burns alive is kind of like, oh, I mean, I guess he learned all those lessons, but
he also wins, sort of. Like,
Yeah,
he wins,
that-
but he dies. Like he doesn't win to the point that he gets to live his life after.
In that ending, though, he's a martyr, and if it's the only ending you see, you kind of feel good that he destroyed the room. But I felt shitty about Sam Jackson interjecting himself in the life of the wife. Tony Shalhoub's character kind of had an inkling about what's going on. That's why he like shut him down. But the wife has no idea. The wife has no idea about this actual literal haunted room. Probably in this universe, from our knowledge of what we saw in the movie, it's the only place in America that's haunted, because you know
all the other ones were.
Mike's been everywhere.
Well, he's never been to Derry, Maine.
It's true. Or Castle Rock.
I was waiting to see. I was waiting to hear some connections to other.
Yeah.
I'm
parts
sure.
of the
I'm
universe.
sure
The
he went
foundations of the room 1408 were dug up from the old town of Castle Rock.
Yeah, they got the plaster. They got the rocks for the plaster from Derry, from the same place where they found it.
Yeah.
that like
They just
meteorite.
well off that
They took
big
the
weird
bricks from the
booger,
well.
frozen booger.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Foreshadowing on
Yeah,
the
but
bricks
I mean,
burned me alive.
I think I mean that's also kind of like the room hinting at how to destroy the room. Is like the room is like, here's your way out kind of thing. Like maybe the room also wants to die. The room is like, I'm tired of torturing.
I've been doing this since the 60s or the 50s,
Since
through the
the
20s.
silent era.
Yeah. I've been doing this since the 1910s, since before the Dust Bowl.
Well,
Can
I
we
think
add
there's
this movie to our day repeaters list of movies?
or what?
I don't think it was a day repeater. All takes
It's an
place
hour repeater.
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, he technically doesn't repeat the hour, but yeah, I guess
He
it
gets
could
to the
be
end of
on
that
there.
hour. He gets to the end of the escape. Imagine an escape room that's 1408 themed.
That'd be
You
dope.
have 1
That'd be
hour to
super
escape.
dope.
Yeah.
Where it
Ding,
spooks
ding.
you get to smash it, but it
Oh
also
man,
spooks
I wanted to mention when the alarm clock first changes to a timer, there's this music that kicks in, and it is music, and it has like this sort of like countdown feel to it. It's like, and then you start to hear like these beats in the sound, and it sounds like, you know, when you're in like an old house and the wind is blowing or the temperature is changing, you can hear like the wood like creaking, and it's like this. I actually searched the song and downloaded it. I'll send it to you guys afterwards, but it's like, it's chilling, man. Like, I don't know, it did a really good job. It's very cool sounding, but it also like creeped me out, and it's utilizing the sound of a counter and wood bending of a room as the primary music.
I mentioned in the opening, but I thought a lot of the score wasn't really a score so much as it was like really creepy musical stings that were like melodic enough that it sounded like music. But if you break it down, it's just a lot of like anticipation feeling sound and then shock feeling sound.
Yeah.
But it plays more like a score than like a regular horror movie.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Silent Hill soundtracks quite a bit.
Yeah, where it's like
yeah, it's like weird. It's like somebody like smashing a garbage can lid or whatever, and it's like yeah.
No, I the cha-chung screech is literally like horrified me when I was a kid. Weirdly enough, I could play horror video games, and I've always been able to. They don't really affect me that way.
See, that's more impressive to me than watching a horror movie, because I still get like oh, this is too scary for me. Like, I get too much of a heart attack feeling where I'm like, I'm being chased by something.
No, I love the Resident Evil games.
Resident Evil, I can deal with
Resident Evil 7 in VR is a little different because that game is actually like you're inside of a nightmare. But all of the like
actually there is a Resident Evil, or there's a Silent Hill called Silent Hill The Room, that is, I believe, is pretty similar to the concept of this movie, or the conceit of this movie at least.
Yeah, it's Silent Hill 4, and it's like it's first person. I couldn't get into it. I did try having it's a PlayStation 2 game, and it's got like pretty advanced graphics for PlayStation 2. And I tried to play through it, but it was kind of one of those things where you need a walkthrough, but playing with a walkthrough kind of defeats the purpose of a Silent Hill game because it's all about it like discovery. So I got a little bit into it. Yeah, exactly. I got a little bit into it, and I was like, I can't really gel with this. I would play a remake. I would play a new Silent Hill. I would play a fully formed version of PT, which was insane. You know, had multiple endings.
PT was great. We played it with all my roommates, and everyone was too scared to touch the controller because they would freak out too hard. So I had to like
I was
pretend
there
I had to
one
be
night.
like, I am brave, and I was like, I'm brave.
I was
I'm
there
brave, I'm
one
brave,
night
I'm
when we
brave.
were all sitting around watching you or Lucas play it, or somebody.
It was me because Lucas would do a thing where he would just run into the wall and just keep running into the wall. He's like, if you don't look at anything, it's not scary. I'm
That's
like,
true.
This is not fun to play. Give me the controller.
That's a good tactic for PT, because that game was
because you can't really die in PT.
No, but it's one of the scariest things I had seen at the time.
Yeah, it's very spooky.
Mid PlayStation 4 era.
Yeah.
Graphically, it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I can play horror games, and it's just rare that I choose to. And when I do, I prefer playing them with other people around. Just because if I'm scared and there's somebody else there, I can be like, I'm scared, and then I feel less scared by saying that to somebody. But
I gotta. Oh well, his little sign off. Stay scared.
Who? Stephen King?
Dude
from the movie. Yeah. Stay scared. Yes. But what he really means is eat shit. Because he doesn't believe.
He's
give me your money and fuck off.
He's such a dick to his 3 fans in that like signing at the beginning.
He wasn't that much of a dick. He was just being truthful. Like he just was not holding back how he actually feels, you know.
But they wanted their favorite author to come and be like, act like their favorite author, but he was really a don't meet your heroes kind of person.
But he probably gets that at every signing, right? Like people, because he even makes the joke where she's like, what's the scariest place you've ever been to? And he's like, oh, I've never heard that question before. I'm just joking. Because he probably gets that when he's just getting a cup of coffee if somebody recognizes him, you know?
But he gets recognized all over the place. So he was like a middle level celebrity in this universe, it seemed like.
It seems like he was probably like very well recognized for some of his early works, and he hadn't finished a book in a long time, so he was just doing book tours for old existing products. And it's like because the publishers seem very interested in his new book, and they're like everybody's like, oh, it's him, we got to talk to him for a second, let's go. And like he, in the director's cut, his publisher is at his funeral and shit. Yeah. Right? So clearly they were like buddies.
Yeah. And it seems very it seems like they were really excited to hear from him when he did call. Yeah. And I thought they were his lawyers at first, but then really it's like his publisher agent kind of situation.
Yeah, I think they really bit too hard into the stake on that scene of like the publishing office. Like it seemed like they were in like a police precinct almost. Yeah. I was like, what? Who's he calling?
I'm glad you brought
that like a million phones ringing and everyone's like running. Like there's papers everywhere. I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this place?
I'm glad you brought
every word's made up. Every word's made up. That's a word right there.
I'm glad you made that up. I'm glad you brought that up because I thought that the whole look of that publishing house or whatever you want to call it, when I thought it was a law firm, it was even crazier. I was like, is this like a weird, like not foreshadowing, but like does this movie have a look to it? And they did this intentional, like weird, small, very rustic looking, very precinct looking, like wooden door frames, like really dark wooden door frames with windows, like all
I felt like what they were trying to lean into there was being like, it's New York, it's all New York.
Look how New York this is.
It is.
We're on this 37th floor, and we've got 17 square feet for 45 employees.
Yeah, that's the bullpen. It's like people are like punching each other by accident, like trying to answer their phones and shit. Like, oh my God.
It costs more than it deserves for the lease.
Yeah,
way more. $2,000 a week.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a theory. So
shoot.
The postcard, right?
Yeah.
So we see the room has taken over his webcam chat and told her to come there because the room wants to gobble her soul as well,
which was spooky. That was a
gobble.
Spooky moment.
Well, the door is like a mouth. The door is like a mouth.
Yeah.
Not just for Thanksgiving anymore.
But so
Thanksgiving.
I think that is the clue that the room is the one that sent, or is the entity behind him getting that postcard in the first place. Almost like so one, like reverse psychology, two, an aspect of like taunting or whatever, because like he's, so, you know, as we were talking about earlier, he's been doing this little tour of his books, his previous books, where they're, you know, top or not top, but like 10 haunted this, 10 haunted that. But in reality, he's basically what's it called? He myth busted or whatever, like all of the places or whatever, right? And so this room's like, oh, okay, you want to go there? Like, you know, challenge accepted. And then, but does what works with me. So if you guys ever want me to do something, reverse psychology works, especially in like a prideful sense. But the room's like, don't come here or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, you know, well, fuck, I'm gonna do it now. And then when he's going through his trip, and like shit's getting super intense at this point, and then the room presents him with a door, and you know, it's like, you know, you open it already or whatever. He opens it, and it's just, you know, a vast emptiness of nothing. You know, almost like this is what you expected, right? Like he doesn't believe in, you know, the afterlife or anything like that. This is like, you know, almost showing him and like rubbing in his face, but scaring the shit out of him with it. Like, this is what you wanted, but I'm controlling it or whatever.
No, I think I know what you're saying, and I I tend to agree that the room may have been aware somehow of this person, because it's like you can explain away paranormal stuff pretty easily by being like, I don't know, it's paranormal. And to that note, like the ghost somehow knows that. Well, yeah, the ghost. See, I was thinking too that like since ghosts do exist in this universe, the places he went to just weren't haunted enough. And they make a really big point of him going to the room, the first place, the bed and breakfast at the beginning, and him like going to the room and doing all of his tests. You know, he does the blue light and there's nothing, and he does, you know,
lots of cum.
And he falls asleep immediately. So he might have been haunted, but the ghosts just weren't haunty enough to wake him up. But this place didn't just haunt him. It psychologically tortured him for 60 minutes at an exponential rate that made him question his own sanity, which is some biblical shit. You know, this room was hell somehow. This room was a fallen angel somehow.
Okay.
Wasn't so much
had
that
the
it's
spirit
haunted,
had the spirit of, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it was like more of a poltergeist than a actual spirit haunting the place, I would say.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Like, it's the room itself is like, it's like the room is containing evil, but it's also the room itself is the evil. It's not like there's not something in there. It is the room is like you're being eaten by the room and you're being digested by the room for as long as you can take it.
And that's why I think that like the whole floor might have some properties that are different dimensions, right out to the hallway, which sort of is like a buffer zone, or like a
well, yeah, I mean the part where she's like, they're in 1408. There's no one there. It's like,
so what that part though. So let's talk about that, because that didn't no, wait, never mind. Okay, because she's not. For some reason, I was thinking that she was there, but she's not there. But wait, where the fuck is he?
Well,
that part is unclear as to whether or not she's actually saying what she's saying. It's a very weird, like,
part of the hallucination.
Room, yeah, exactly. Is the room projecting that image?
But the message did get out to her to come,
because she came. Right?
She came.
She was there.
But what I can't figure out is how. I get that they couldn't have gotten up there in time, but like, did the cop did the explosion out of the window happen and he was dead, and then they couldn't get up there? Like, because it seemed like they had enough time to figure out how to get up to that room. I don't know. There's some murky stuff that brought my score down a little bit, and it's pedantic, dumb sci-fi, like stuff you're not really supposed to talk about, but the nature of a podcast like this, we're going to get into it. And it just comes down to the storytelling that you just explain away with. I don't know, it's a ghost. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it doesn't really make a difference because I think the entire premise is wackadoo anyway. So like, I'm okay with some weird inconsistencies or logical pitfalls.
And they filmed 4 endings. 2, like they have multiple endings to the movie. So it's like, if you want whatever ending you want to believe, that's what happened. So
right.
I love the idea of him surviving in the mass audience version because people want a happy ending. But for me, I like that he died and became a ghost in the burnt up room, because that cinematically is much more satisfying for his journey, in my opinion, as somebody who never gets to see a fucking, it's not an unhappy ending, but it's not a happy ending, if that makes sense. I like to see a different ending than the norm. Like the only thing more general audience is that he somehow resurrects his fucking dead daughter and they all literally walk into a sunset together.
Well, I mean,
but in the director's cut, that does happen because he's clearly in the room with his ghost daughter. Because you hear her say something to him as he walks and turns into mist.
Yeah, she's calling him and he says, yeah, okay, I'm coming, and he disappears. But
that's not what he says. But like he said, I meant to write it down. I forget what he says now, and it always, like, I was like, what is that supposed to mean?
I think he says, of course, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think you're right. Of course, yeah.
So I think that either way, I think that the ending that I watched was good for me, and I think the theatrical ending is good for the wide audience. And any variations on that? You guys said there's 4 or 3.
There's at least 3.
There's 3 that I know of. Kaylin, you said 4, but I don't know what the 4th.
What's the third ending?
The book survives.
So he does die, but they don't do the funeral. It goes to the publisher and the wife or ex-wife or widow.
The personal effects go to
the publisher
instead of the wife, and he the transcript
but
of the
book.
book.
With them? I thought they were together. Aren't they together?
I don't fucking remember. There's
you
3 endings, and they're all over the goddamn place.
It's 2 minutes.
I said I don't remember. There's 3 endings, and they all have the same characters in them. I'm remembering the bits that are important. It doesn't matter.
Did you watch them though? Did you watch them?
I've seen all of them. Yes.
The 3 of them, like shortly before this, or in total in your life.
In total in my life, I have seen all 3 endings.
Okay.
For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, sometimes Kaylin and Stephen have a difference of opinion and don't really get each other. Miscommunicate, if you will.
Love you, Steve.
It's one of the quirks of our program. It's part of the fun. I get to sit here like I'm watching my parents fight. It's pretty good. So I'm used to it. My parents used to fight all the time in front of me, and it made me the champion I am today.
Very sexy.
Well, I'm glad that we're bringing back fond childhood memories.
Nope, it's trauma.
I can go for some fondue.
Anyway, yeah, there's 3 endings. The other one is that the book that he wrote in the fake world that he came out into, that transcript is sent to the publisher. So the book he wrote, whatever that book may be, I assume it has something to do with him as a person. It's not another scariest people or scariest places book. It's like another proper novel.
It was something like a dream autobiography is the way he described it.
Yeah, and so it's got to be a lot of information on the actual room as well, probably. Right?
Fictional dream
it kind of
autobiography.
completes everything, even though he's dead.
A prequel to the Month of Madness, the first book that drives everybody insane. Not really. That's me just trying to connect every movie together.
But I mean, that's not a bad perception of what or like idea of what that could be, because like, why would the room want that transcript out if it's not going to like incite something spooky, you know?
Yeah, maybe not literally the same universe, but it's like you could make a sequel.
It grows the seed in someone else.
Yeah, or the director reads that, or the writer reads that for in the John Carpenter thing, and then that author who's a very similar like writer starts writing books that drive people literally mad. I just, before we get off the topic, I really like the director's ending. The fact that Samuel L. Jackson listens back, like through the whole movie, he's recording things on a voice recorder, which is a very good way to move along the plot with one person being the sole focus of the movie. You can just say whatever. But I do like that it does that thing that Lost does at the end, where the ghosts come and tell, like Hurley comes and tells everybody that you were everything that happened in real life happened in real life, and now you've all met at the end of time. But everything that happened. Sorry, major spoilers for Lost. But in this, he listens back to the recording and he hears him talking to his own ghost daughter. So we know as the audience that everything that happened in the movie happened. That happens
in both endings, by the way.
It does happen.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the one where he survives, he pulls out the tape recorder and he starts listening to it, and his daughter's voice appears, and his wife hears it, and she's like, "What?" And then the movie ends. And so it's the same confirmation. Yeah.
Remember how earlier I was saying in the coming back to life dream sequence, I was like looking for the cracks. And what we know about their relationship is that she would probably take him back, and she says, he's like, so you want to, when they're in LA, and he's like, do you want to stay here? And she goes, I can't. And when she said that, I was like, oh, that's chilling, because that means that she literally, like, this is all a figment of a ghost or an apparition putting a really real thing into his mind, like creating these real apparitions into his mind, and
based on real fears, right? Like that's probably his biggest fear as to why he hasn't communicated with her in so long, is that he's scared that he'll ask
that she's going to reject
she'll say
him.
No, right?
But that apparition itself was like a real entity that was like, I can't, because I'm not real, you know. Fuck, I kind of haunted myself again thinking about.
That was a good one. I like that.
No, it's good, and there's lots of interesting stuff with just his character, right? Like, as fun as it is to see him smacking a ceiling grate with a table leg and fighting off a weird haircutted claw hammer man,
almost fighting himself a la Evil Dead for a lot of the movie. When he sees Sam Jackson in the fridge and he's punching the fridge, and it zooms out and he's just punching the fridge.
Yeah, and like all the beer is going everywhere. And he's like,
I felt bad for the beer.
One thing when we watched the trailer yesterday, Jason, that I was disappointed, because I know you didn't really know what you were getting into, was the doppelganger bit was in the trailer. And if you haven't seen that before, it's wacky and it's kind of spooky.
Yeah, the doppelganger thing was like the moment of the movie I was anticipating, which I wish I didn't know about. It's one of those things I don't.
Let's normalize getting rid of trailers.
Yeah, that's one of the.
Or making trailers that are completely separate than the movie.
I
think that for movies like this, trailers do that moment in the movie would have been far more creepy and weird had you not seen it in the trailer. But I'll watch Thor: God and Thunder trailer. I'm pretty sure I can anticipate what's going to happen in that movie.
That's a good point. I think that I want to keep MCU trailers out of our trailer show, but I'm fine to watch trailers for the movies we're going to watch. But I don't know if I can do, like, when we do next week for next week's movie, I might step away for this because it's a Stephen King that I don't know. So I might, for movies, I might have to actually just step away and just play it for the people, because the chances are people are not going to watch the trailer show and then 2 nights later.
I think if I had vetted that trailer before you decided to watch it, I probably would have been like, Jason, maybe close your eyes.
Yeah.
Plug your ears and close your eyes.
Yeah. Because that scene sells the movie, ironically, even though for me, it's a problem that I have with trailers. Trailers are meant to hype people up for movies, and that scene is a selling point for the movie. But for me, though, I was just waiting for it to happen in the context, and
this era of trailer is also when things started getting to, like, we need to show this stuff because we need people to get into their butts in the seats, and like, we're gonna watch it anyway. You don't need to watch the trailer. We're gonna watch it tomorrow. You don't need to watch the trailer. And like I was obsessed with trailers. I still love trailers. I think that they're deserving of their own award ceremony, or even at least have a category within the Academy Awards for best trailer, because some of those trailers are edited better than the movies themselves are. I really think it's unfortunate. Like I don't get upset, but I get disappointed every time Jason is like, no, I didn't see that trailer and I never will. And I'm like, but it gets you so fucking pumped up, man.
Honestly, it's just MCU because I want to go into every Marvel movie blind, and it's Star Wars because it's Star Wars. And it's, you know what, I'm sorry, I'll watch teasers once. I watched the Thor trailer, and I guess to your point, I've already like forgotten basically. I
remember running through the woods.
Yeah, I remember the big man.
Well, there was a new trailer that dropped yesterday, I think, or the day before. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch that.
It's even better than the first one.
I believe you. I did watch the Obi-Wan trailer, which left me more confused than anything, because it kind of evokes like where it's supposed to take place in the timeline. But I just like, to my point though, the Multiverse of Madness trailer did show most of the movie, except for the big spoilers weren't, but it showed basically the whole plot. And that's the part.
Yeah, I think I also just don't give a shit, because
you don't care. Like, you don't.
The Marvel movies are like, so they're all samey at this point to me. So I'm like, I don't really care. I'll just.
But those are that's like my cinematic excitement. Like I know it's like yours is Star Wars, and you'll watch Star Wars trailers and watch them over and over and pick them apart. But I
still like Marvel movies. I watch all of them. I've seen every single one. Some of them multiple times.
My point is I don't rewatch Marvel movies the way that you'll rewatch a Star Wars over and over anyway. I'll rewatch a Spider-Man movie over and over anyway, right? And those, I will watch trailers for like Spider-Man movies because I know I'm going to rewatch the movie anyway. But to my point, like I was saying for Multiverse of Madness, I knew I was going to watch it once, maybe twice. And I don't want to already have to see I don't want to anticipate all this stuff from the trailer. Anyway, sorry. My point is across. Kalen, what were we going to say, buddy?
When we were talking in chat about I'm Still Here, I knew nothing about that movie going into it, and I am forever grateful, and part of me almost wishes I could watch it again without knowing anything about it.
Like knowing, because I remember seeing him on late night at that, like during that time. I remember seeing him show up and be like a complete disaster nightmare person.
Yeah.
And then the movie was revealed, and I don't think I watched the trailer for it either. And I remember watching and thinking it was like a real.
I thought it was just a doc. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And not a real.
But I mean,
Hi, Madison.
I think my point is that like there are certain movies that the trailer will completely sully your experience because the movie is intimate, and the things that are big that they're going to put into trailers, they have
Batman
to
versus Superman.
What did you just say? Batman versus Superman?
They ruined trailers for me forever.
Okay.
I know that's laughable to you, but that showed so much of.
But you're stomping on the point that I'm trying to make, which is that an intimate movie such as I'm Still Here, something that's small, something that's lower budget, something that has very specific large moments within the movie, those don't need trailers really. You just need to have maybe like a synopsis of what the story is about.
Superman versus Batman: Dawn of Justice was an indie film that showed only at the
came out of the pocket of Zachy S himself.
It was directed by Tim Heidecker and was written by fucking
that's a joke, right?
Who's the guy from who did those shitty movies? Corey
Feldman?
No, fucking he made Kids.
What? With his penis?
Stinky stinker.
He made Kids and Spring Breakers and
Harmony Korine.
Harmony Korine.
I love that guy.
Banned from the Tonight Show.
Beach Bum.
Beach Bum was Beach Bum was good.
Beach Bum's awesome.
I never saw Gummo.
Spring Breakers is actually good.
I like Spring Breakers. Gummo freaked me out when I was a kid, because it's about like bullies.
It is pretty messed up, but it's also dope.
Yeah.
Steven?
I have nothing to say. Those movies are fun. They're good movies.
Kids was a dope flick.
Kids disturbed me beyond disturbance. I didn't realize
I have
what I was
no
getting into when I
legs.
watched it.
Lalo,
Anyway,
I
we don't need
think
to talk
he gets
about
AIDS and gives everybody
trailers
AIDS.
anymore. Let's get back to 1408, perhaps the movie we're discussing.
You can follow us on all social media here.
Did you guys have a favorite scene or shot?
My favorite scene was the conversation before he goes in the room. It's the best fucking thing ever to be committed to film.
That was very good, but there were certain moments I really liked how I had a real aha moment that I think was my favorite thing, where one of the last rooms he's in is a burnt out, just like dead like room, and it's almost played like this is what the room actually looks like. They kind of do it in other film and media where they go into like this nice place, and then you snap out of it and it's like there's dead bodies everywhere and it's all burnt and gross and
like silent film.
Exactly. And I thought they were trying to convey that, but no, it was the foreshadowing for the fact that the room burns down, because then you see it again when he's in the director's cut, when he's a ghost and like, you know, turns into mist. And I was like, I had a real like, you know, circle of life aha moment where I was like, oh fuck, that's really good. Like,
he also leaves the room.
Oh, does he?
No, like I mean, at the end there, like he's leaving. The room.
He disappears out like where the door would be.
He's walking towards the door and he vanishes.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that both endings are satisfying depending on who you are. But I think they both work, but I like the one where he survives a bit more. I don't know. I think that Sam Jackson showing up at the funeral being like, you don't understand, your husband's a hero.
Well, he's a different
Nobody
character.
will ever go into that evil room again.
I
find it more satisfying that he died, but I agree with, I forget, one of you said something about, maybe it was you, Steven, that, or maybe it was, I can't remember which one you said.
Just say what we said.
Where one of you, like, this made him look good as opposed to where he could have been like a devil or gatekeeper or something like that.
Yeah, the Sam Jackson, you mean, right?
Well, yeah. I stand by what I said, how I like the director's cut, and I already said my piece about it. But Sam Jackson's character that shows up with the box and the personal effects, and he's like, your husband's a hero, is a different character than when he goes to the hotel at the beginning. Yeah, it's a different guy. He's way more like, not is like, we're trying to be like a weird lovable scamp or something, you know.
Well, I took it as like Sam Jackson has like committed to the fact that John Cusack is going to die, and he knows that he's going to die. Like when he puts him into that room, he's like, this motherfucker's dead, I know he is. So he's just bullying him at that point, being like, your funeral, like literally being like, you can go if you want, but you're gonna die, and I've told you you're gonna die like 14 times, 1408 times. And so I think that there's like, you know, you can have the perspective that he is the devil, but you can also be like, he's just fed up and he's just like, you know what, fuck you, man. You just took my $800 bottle of cognac and you put it in your bag and then still was like, still going in the room, man. It's a dick move.
And because he finally killed the room or whatever, so he was happy about it.
Yeah, he's literally like eternally grateful, being like, your husband did what I thought was impossible, which was to destroy this blight in my hotel.
I think that I would like, do you guys have like, there was like obvious scares, but did you have any unintentional or like pseudo scare moments? Because the little bit at the beginning where he looks up into the air duct right at the beginning, and it kind of looks like a camera, but it also kind of looks like
bones, maybe burnt bones,
or like burnt bones, or like it was like I couldn't get a good look at it. It felt,
I assumed
really
it was supposed to be
me.
the tailor from later, but I also was like, but it also looks like they maybe filmed bones, and then the next shot that it zooms in a little bit, it is a camera, and the next shot it is the bones again. So it's like they they specifically change it a couple times to make you even kind of second guess what you're looking at.
Because they do a lot of like, you have to really think about the fact that they made John Cusack put on like full on makeup for less than a second flash
of him being like,
of him. Okay, so just to put it into context, in the director's cut, where in
the television show Bloodlines, Danny gets burnt. Season 2, he shows up as burnt Danny.
Or Kaylin, you were probably like, what are you talking about, burnt Danny? In the show Bloodline, there's a character who gets burned, and me and Steve have an inside joke where we kind of anthropomorphized the burnt version of Danny because he comes back as a ghost. Anyway, Sam Jackson is rolling away. He listens to the audio recording. Here's the daughter, and here's John Cusack talking to each other on the recording. And then he's like, "Ha, well, at least they're together now." And then he looks back to like back up or whatever. And there's just like a less than 1 second flash of John Cusack in like full burnt like makeup. And it's the only part that happens in the movie, and they had to put this guy through like full makeup.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's hilarious.
For one, like a split.
Not second. Even. It might be like 0.2 seconds.
They probably filmed him go for literally 4 hours.
They made him think it was going to be more than.
Oh, there was probably they probably had like a second round of the conversation from The Office where he's just in the back seat now. He's like, "You were right. I shouldn't have went in that fucking room. I shouldn't have went in that room. And I even tried to leave real quick. I told you it was an evil fucking room. Yeah, you're right. You did. You did say that. It broke my hand, and I tried to leave, but it wouldn't let me out. You got any more of that cognac? It was $300. I loved it.
I did like when he was hugging his daughter, and then she turned to ash or whatever.
She burst into like burnt.
What was really good about that was that he was startled into shattering her by the radio again. That was good.
Yeah. It was good. Yeah.
It's pretty powerful, man. Powerful stuff.
I think. Oh shit.
What?
Yeah.
Almost 11 o'clock.
Are we there?
We're there. I'm gonna bring us into final thoughts here, y'all. Bing.
Okay. Just let me. I think I talked about everything in my notes.
I didn't even look at my notes once.
No, I think that as we went through, I just talked about everything I wrote down, and my notes are there for if everybody stops talking, which never happens. But I do feel like if I just watched the movie and tried to come and fucking freeball it,
it's weird though. See, when you write them down, it just kind of helps cement it.
Yeah.
Already in there. And then also when the other thing too I find is that like you guys will bring up things that bring up what I want to bring up or whatever.
Yeah, like I just wrote it. Sees old man and we didn't
he was not impressed right now. How do I win you over?
You're like, you know what I like is when we're having a conversation and you say something and it reminds me that I should say something and I say it.
I mean, when
you're describing like that, conversation, Caleb.
Yeah, I wanted to do a segment where I went through the tropes in this movie too, but like it's not gonna work. I wrote down "Daddy, I'm cold" trope because when the daughter comes out, she's like, "Daddy, I'm cold," and that's a weird thing that ghost children do every time there's a ghost children.
I am your daughter.
There was one other trope I wanted to bring up, and it doesn't really matter, honestly. Oh, this movie is categorized as a psychological horror.
Psychological horror.
Definitely is that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday I was like trying to pin down what it is. I'm like, I don't know. It's a thriller, I guess. I don't know.
I like psychological horror. I think that's a good.
Yeah, it's definitely trippy and it's horrific.
Oh, this is a weird trope that this happens. Alien geometries is the trope where a painting, no matter how much you try to adjust it, it just unadjusts.
Wrong. Yeah.
And he does that apparently.
It's crooked. He goes to fix it and he fixes it almost perfectly, and then he pushes it slightly too far in the other direction, and then he sits down and stares at it. And you're like, can you fix that, John? That shit is crooked still. Yeah, I'm freaking out over here. This truly is a psychological horror.
If you want to take a look at it, I put the link to the list of tropes in the chat. It's a good read. There's some interesting stuff in there, but it's very long.
I have one piss off.
Okay, let's hear your one piss off, and then Steve will take us home.
So he turns around, sees himself in the mirror, and then he disappears. And then he waves his bottle or whatever, and it cuts back, but it cuts before you actually get to see the bottle floating in the mirror.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to have a vampire ghost cup scene where he's like,
no. One second. I didn't want that to happen, but they set it up and then didn't show it. But now that I say it out loud, the fact that it pissed me off so much almost makes me like it.
It didn't piss me. One thing that didn't piss me off, but I do want to bring up before we get to the end here, is most like a lot of the special effects in this movie were really well done, but when the water splashes out of the painting, like it's it's a torrential explosion of water. First, you see him get hit, and it looks like water hitting a person. Then you get a back shot and like a sort of side to back shot, and it's obviously a really bad dummy. And then it cuts to clearly a stunt double going flying. But the part in the middle that it's the water hitting a dummy like the hardest, go back and watch that moment. The dummy looks so hilariously bad. Like it really,
talking about when the water hits them?
Yeah, it hit a person, and then it cut to the water
It has like
extra hard, and it was like clearly a dummy, and then it cut to a person falling backwards, and it was clearly a person. It was a really funny inconsistency in the.
What do you got, like 1080p or some shit over there?
That's your inconsistency, and not the wild bottle of cognac that's full, then half full, then empty, then I'm
no, but I'm just sensitized. I'm just sensitized to that because it's funny. He does pour it on his own head at one point, and then has enough to do a full-on Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. But if you watch it, it's not pouring out. Like when he's doing that, it's like he still has the top on.
Yeah, I think he has maybe has his thumb.
I don't know. I watched it in a very HD format, and I could see a lot of cognac being poured all over him.
It's true.
What, like VHS?
No, like Blu-ray. Like a Blu-ray copy.
Yeah, I watched
like
it in
4K.
Yeah,
4,000 Ks.
4,000 Ks.
Do you need to
really
say
only,
K if you say 4,000?
Which is really only.
No,
like
you don't.
30,
That
90.
was the funny part of the thing I was saying.
Anyway, I'm spent.
Are we having fun yet? I'm having fun.
We had an upper echelon of 7 viewers tonight, which was pretty good.
I guess the only thing that pisses me off about the movie is that when he goes into the bookstore at the front and he's like, "I'm here for the book signing," and the guy's like, "Cool," and then he's like, "I'm the author," and then he lifts up the pamphlet and there's a picture of him and he goes, "Oh, I see the resemblance." It's like, what? It's because it's me. There's not a resemblance. This is a photo of me.
That's good writing, indicating from the point of view of the main protagonist that everybody is stupid except for him.
Yes, of course, but still made me mad because I'm like, I could see someone saying that. I want to slap this motherfucker.
That's part of what I mean. The whole movie is from the perspective.
What about Religion Radio at the beginning? It signifies that he's in the middle of middle America and there's no good radio stations around.
Yep.
Being like, God.
Don't touch me there.
Steven, I feel like if we met under different circumstances, I may have pissed you off.
What do you mean? You piss me off all the time. We met under these circumstances and you've pissed me off more than once this evening. So
he's kidding. Look.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
I couldn't tell about that last part. The first part sounded funny, and then that last one sounded like
it's like let me just stab you and then twist it.
Steve's grasp on sarcasm is a little bit like you gotta tweak it a little bit, man. Because sometimes you can get a little mean.
Oh, it's not sarcasm, it's autism. I don't think I have anything else in my notes that
What did you guys think about the delivery when he was like, "Get your hands off me, old man"?
Wait, say it again. I missed.
When he's like talking to his dad. I'm probably not doing the same in.
Yeah, no, I know the scene when he's crawling through the duct and he's seeing all the different things and he sees
looking down,
vision of his past of him arguing with his dad, and his dad grabs him and he's like, "Don't ever touch me, old man."
Both of what they're saying at that time is like very. It's like you're remembering an argument and like your dad is saying some crazy bullshit, but you're saying like something that's like perfect for the moment. Like it's almost like he's having like you're having like a fake argument with somebody in the shower or something. It's almost like he's having one of those.
Remembering a thing going a different way in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's just go into the the final thoughts, I guess. I don't know. I was trying to. I have like actually 3 pages of notes, and I didn't look at any of them the entire time. So
What?
I took a lot.
Can you
of
quickly
notes for
look
this
at them
one.
right now and make sure there isn't anything you want to say before we do final thoughts? Because I don't want to miss out on 3 pages of dopeness.
The empty Bible is a signification of his loss of faith in the room, saying, "There's no God here for you, you bitch. Go to hell."
I'm gonna take another look over my notes.
Which is just me being like writing down, being like, "Whoa, there's no God in the room. That's why the Bible's empty." Sick. Sick.
I read something online that said the movie was 140 minutes and 8 seconds long, but it's not. It pissed me off.
Is it?
You got caught up under the bridge with that troll, did you? So why does when the printer is printing out the little girl's dress?
No, that's a fax machine. That is a fax machine.
Does when the fax machine
the reason
fax
why
the dress
I corrected
out
you is because it's very 2007 to show.
I want to hear the question.
Technology. Sorry, I'm in tech.
Why does the printing press when it's printing out that newspaper why does the dress when it's being produced via an electronic device sound so gooey? It's like it sounds so gooey.
I don't know. The Foley artist was like, they left the Foley artist alone.
Yeah.
That
and
night
he fell asleep, but he
Oh, did you guys understand the "this is 5, this is 8" thing?
What?
There's a part when he's like on the phone, like towards the end, and then all of a sudden it's like 5, this is 5, 8, this is 8, or some shit like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something, but I didn't know what it was, and I think that in the book it's something different. So it's probably referencing something.
8 plus 5 is 13. I just quickly did that math on my hands.
Ooh.
But did you do 1 plus 4 plus 0 plus 8?
Where's the third hand, Jason? Where's the third hand?
No, I said one number in my head, and then I counted up until I got to 5 on this hand, and then it was 13. You know what? Speaking of phones, this is a traditional segue. The melting phone segment I thought was a really cool practical effect of clearly they just like melted a phone and filmed it.
Yeah, I love when something melts in a movie. It's good, especially when it looks good.
I read something that said it wasn't practical.
How?
It was just chocolate?
No, it was partly CGI.
Could have been. But it had that weird like
why would they do that in CGI? It was so more expensive back. They could have just melted a phone.
Like, why would they do that? There was barely any CGI in this movie that I could really noticeably see. It was all
they hired ghosts to be radio ghosts.
Exactly. No, I mean, I wouldn't consider green screening in, I guess that is literally CGI. It's literally computer generated image.
I need to get my CGI surgery touch up.
I think that green screen and blue screen goes back far enough in filmmaking that there's lots of green screen in 80s movies. It's bad. It's not great. I'd rather see a chest burster come out of a chest and it just be like a
puppet.
A puppet.
Yeah, like Ninja Turtles from '91. That's what I'm talking about.
That movie rules. Yeah.
Okay, let's go into final thoughts because I don't think we have much else here to add other than
I have one more question. I don't know if Kaylin, you've both seen this movie multiple times. When he first drowns the first time, does his wetsuit say Psycho 1 on the shoulder at the beginning?
I did notice that too. So you said something earlier, and I thought they were going to do that. I'm like, oh, he has an injury, and then he wakes up all good.
The cracks,
I thought it was going to be more to it.
The cracks in the reality inside the room when he wakes up is one of the most intriguing things that there's gotta be clues in there, like maybe when they're in the restaurant, something happens in the background, like the woman in white walks by or something.
Yeah, no, there is like the lady who killed herself by jumping out the window. She's like one of the hostesses or whatever, like servers. Yeah, cool. There's a couple. Yeah,
cool.
All right, let's go to final thoughts.
Do it.
All right, welcome to Final Thoughts. Ding, 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 ding. I guess
someday we'll have songs for our segments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a ukulele right there.
Leave it.
Ukulele. All right, I'll go first because I started first, so I guess I'll start first again.
Yeah, I like
this
that
movie
Star Fox
is far better than
Me too.
I thought it was going to be on a rewatch from over 10 years past. I guess at this
15?
point it's been 25 years. No, not 25, 15 years
Yeah.
since this
Are
movie
we all
came
just
out.
terrible at math? Is that what we
I'm
learned?
No.
great at math. What are you
It's been 15 years since this movie came out, and I thought maybe it was going to suck. And my first initial viewing was going to be me being like, I was just a dumb kid. But this movie still has lots of stuff to enjoy in it. And it's got a lot of stuff for you to sink your teeth into in terms of character development, in terms of unraveling the mystery of a man himself while he is having to deal with all of the fun, spooky nonsense of a room that is just literally torturing him the entire time. And it's not torturing him in the way that a lot of the movies of this era, like Saw and Hostel and all those movies, would have done, which is like, let's rip his legs off and make him run a mile or something crazy.
I was really worried about just like gratuitous gore, the way
And
that
I mean,
conversation.
that's one thing that you'll never see me bring into this podcast, Jason, is a bunch of nasty, gory movies, because I don't really find a lot of joy in those, unless you're talking about like the Evil Dead movies, which in those the gore is also fun and funny a lot of the time. But I was, again, pleasantly surprised, and I was more so intrigued by how much I've kind of grown as a person since I initially saw this, how much more I got out of this movie in terms of like where my life has progressed compared to where it was when I first saw it. I'm a completely different person than I was back then, and I can appreciate things that I didn't necessarily appreciate the first time through. A person feeling lost. When I first saw this movie, I felt like I was a person on a trajectory springboarding into the future, and now I'm like, I went through like a lot of time of like lows and like depression, and I understand what it's like to like look for answers in an $800 bottle of cognac and like look into the Bible and have no words written there. Not that I've ever looked into a Bible, but like I mean metaphorically. And I think that, as you know, interesting as this is as sort of like a character's journey, even if you don't give a shit about that, you can also really enjoy all of the weird setups and the weird spooks and like strange ghouls and stuff that he has to go through. The ledge scene is very tense. The ice is very foreboding. All the ghosts that he encounters, and everything is set up and paid off nicely. There are some points that feel a little bloated to me, and there are points that feel almost like you're being fed through a wood chipper of like scary stuff happening one after the other, where you don't even really have a moment to digest it. With that said, though, there's not like a ton of jump scares in this movie, and the ones that do come at you, they come at you deservedly. They take their time to make you go through something to feel like you're going to be safe, and then they get you with a jump scare, or they set up something very nicely, slowly, dramatically build tension, and then they hit you with a jump scare. And almost every time the jump scare is the same thing. I don't know if I should say what it is because it might give it away, but also we've already given away a lot of spoilers, but I think that would be a fun one to keep secret. And I think at the end of the day, I have to give this movie a 1406 out of 1408.
That is a good one. Why didn't I think of that?
Excellent.
I think I went to Jason next.
Yeah. So all of that said, you summed it up very well. To add on to that, it's been a long time since I pretty much, no matter what movie it is, I kind of have a bit of dread to watch a movie, and it's a weird idiosyncrasy I have. It's why I didn't really get into movies in the first place. I just have a weird aversion to watching movies. So sometimes the movie will be a chore, and I fully expected every John Carpenter movie and every Stephen King movie to be chores. None of the John Carpenter movies were chores, and so far none of the Stephen King movies have been chores. And not only was this not a chore, this movie made me want to go see this kind of movie in theaters. This movie made me want to watch more psychological horrors. This movie reminded me a lot of American Horror Story, where they can do jump scares and they can really toe the line on gore, and they can really toe the line on what they can get away with for it. Like, what was it, a PG-13 movie? Is it PG-13? Is it 14?
It might have been
Is it
14A
PG-14?
because there's quite a bit of swearing in it.
You're swearing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The theater of the mind kind of takes over with this.
Just remember, it's an evil fucking room.
It's an evil fucking room. I don't. But I was gonna say, I don't think there's a lot of swearing in it beyond that, and it's a lot of just John Cusack just acting against himself, which it really shows the man's range. And that's why I kept thinking about Nick Cage. And you're right. Like once we talked about it a bit, Nick Cage would absolutely ham it up. But to go back to what I was saying, when a movie feels like a chore, it almost feels like I'm gonna enjoy it that much less. But I was really surprised by this. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. When the movie ended, I had lots of questions, lots of talking points. It totally is the kind of movie that this show was made for. And I'm really glad that we've added I feel like if me and Kaylin had continued to do this show, it would be sparse, twice a month. The movies would be bigger named movies, which they kind of were back then, like especially our summer movie series, which was a whole
and Buster
summer.
Keaton. Let's not forget Buster Keaton. Huge.
A summer, yeah, but I mean like the summer of literal blockbusters was kind of like, that's not the heart and soul of what this show is. And Steve bringing along, a month of John Carpenter and a month of Stephen King is very important for a growth.
Trifecta.
So, exactly. I think we all bring unique things to this project. And this movie was awesome. I'm going to think about it for a long time. All of the 2 months that I'm talking about, those movies have stuck with me. And this one is no different. So something interesting is I looked up the ratings for IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and there's one called Voodoo. I don't know what the fuck that is, but I'm going to give it a 4.2 out of 5. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 79, so even higher than mine. IMDb gave it a 6.8 out of 10, which is about the same as slightly lower than me. So yeah, that's I don't have any I know sometimes I can get a little bit sentimental in this segment, and this is where I usually bust out the deep thought element, but this isn't a real surface level deep thinker. It's a movie you watch and then talk about, because there's lots to talk about while you're watching it. You have to let the movie happen to you, and then you process it. I do
want to check out this Dante's Inferno review, because it's long and I feel like it's probably really in depth. So I feel like there is some very deep thinking you can do about something like this in terms of subtext, but as a story, yeah, it's about one man and his horrible life, and how a room kind of pokes fun at that life.
Getting his back blown out by a fucking ghost.
Yeah.
By a haunted room.
Well, as they say, it's an evil fucking room.
An evil fucking room. All right, that's me.
Kaylin.
Bonjour.
Bonjour to you. Give us your final thoughts.
How does someone follow up you guys? You've cut my work out for me. Is that the expression? You've cut my work.
You have your work cut out.
You have your cut work.
Yeah,
ahead of you. For you, it's going to be cut. It got cut
up.
Can
you guys cut my work for me?
It's like a meat slicer. Here you go. You want it deli thin or?
I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to have too much more to add on to it, because you guys, Steven described it beautifully. Jason, you definitely, what you said about it making you want to see this kind of movie is definitely the essence of what this little venture with us is. And I've said it before, I want to bring what I like, but I also want to know what other people like. And then I also want other people that see this to be like, oh, maybe I'll check that out, and then they'll be like, oh shit. I did enjoy this movie a lot. I said earlier it was very concise. Compared to the previous one, in regards to tone and everything, it was definitely top notch. It was enjoyable. I was captivated. I wanted to know, like, I was on the edge of my seat watching it the whole time, like, what's happening, what's going to happen next. It did get me a few times with a few little jumps, and Steven, like you said, deservedly so. Like, it wasn't, they weren't done cheesily or anything like that. It was nice. I give this movie a staying in an untampered room, never been slept in, never been fucked in, no nothing in. Like, it's you're the first in it. I give it that out of a hotel.
A fresh hotel room, no one ever done slept in it before you?
None of that.
There's one thing we forgot to talk about that I just want to very quickly address, and it's one of the first things that freaks him out when he's in the room is when he's like, man, think about how many people have slept in that bed. Think about how many people have been sick in that bed. Think about how many people have died in that bed. And then everything starts to happen. I thought that was, the slow burn for the first 10 minutes is so fucking good.
Also, one of my segments, movie title shout out.
Oh yeah, thank you.
32 seconds.
Thank you. It's the movie.
I was really hoping for 1408. Hoping for 1408.
I was also hoping that there was going to be something at some exact moment. Like, I looked at the timestamp when different things would happen and be like, is there something? Yeah. So it's one of the, it had a lot of
treasure hunting. Yeah.
Had a lot of treasure hunting, lost. Like there's stuff baked into this movie.
Let's make a movie and put stuff in it.
You got budget?
Yeah, you got.
We don't need a budget. We have a phone.
True, but we don't.
That's not all you need. You need much more than a phone, my friend.
We can't just me and Steve do everything and then green screen you in.
Book a night at a hotel.
We don't live in the same province, Kaylin. And there's
also that wasn't a real hotel. That was a set.
They
built the set.
But I'm saying we could guerrilla warfare, or we could guerrilla peace fair, or we could guerrilla recycle, or whatever.
This has been another episode of Hey, Did You See This?
It just fades out slowly. we can do a guerrilla warfare against hotels.
We didn't have any. The new reoccurring segment I'd like to do at the end of the show is check the Twitch chat, and there wasn't really anything. We had one person, confused MTG player, I think that stands for Magic the Gathering, was kind of playing along. One person called Mano65 said, "Want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers at mystorm.store," which I think you
get banned for doing that.
Absolutely, we can. And also, all that means is that we have a bot.
That's a good side.
That's a good side. We've had a consistent the Terminators here. We had a consistent 5 viewers tonight, went up to 7 or 8 at different points. So I'm happy with that. It's good. It's been a good maiden voyage.
And it's only going to get better, folks.
We got another follower.
That on the Instagram, I'm gonna wrap things up over here by saying, for Jason, for Kaylin, I am Steven.
For I forgot my own name. For Kaylin, for Steven, I'm Jason.
And for Steven and Jason, I'm Kellen.
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, you see this one?
I saw it 1,408 times.